think about where we've been here in our weeks. We're in week number 9, and we've been talking about the foundations of Western civilization, the pillars that hold up the temple, that hold up the building. And so tonight we're going to talk about the fourth, I'll put my fingers up there so everybody at home will know, the fourth of those pillars. We've talked about the Greek and the Roman and the ancient Israel, and now tonight we add the fourth piece, the Christians. One of the secrets of the vibrancy and the creativity of the Western tradition is that multiple pieces are brought together and held together, even though naturally they're often polar opposites. So this creates a tradition that's continuously enlivened and enriched, and always in tension, always in tension. And so throughout history, again and again and again, 400, 800, 1400 in the Renaissance, 1500 in the Reformation, 17th century England, 18th century France, again and again and again at each one of those junctures, that cultural world has to rethink and rebind these pieces. So one more piece tonight. You're looking at the map of the Mediterranean world, and we want to just remember what we've done here in our past weeks. So we've been talking about Rome. So let's just remember that we've been talking about the rise of Rome in that central Mediterranean location. And so tonight we're going to add a new location, a new story. First, let's just remember what we've said about why Rome was born where it was. 4 things: unique location on a river network, unique location that linked it to the Greeks, because the Greeks were all around Rome in Italy, location that linked them to the Etruscans, north of Rome, and a location that linked them to the Carthaginians. So all of these 3 other great civilizations put Rome in a kind of continuous condition of tension with her neighbors. So it was a creative tension. Then we've talked about what Rome did, and that matters again here tonight. And number 1, Rome extends Greece. We've already said that. One of the most important things that Rome does is it extends Greece. And number 2, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, it extends Christianity. It provides an idea of the universal state. It provides a model of government. We said that for the Republic. It provides a written constitution, the first written constitution. It gives our Western civilization the legal structure. It builds the roads and the cities of Europe. So that's what Rome does for the Mediterranean, for Italy, and for all of Europe. It builds Europe. So that's the first big thing that it achieves. Now, what we want to add here tonight is how Rome extends Christianity out of that southeast corner of the Mediterranean. And, as I've written up here on our picture of the forum, and we should remember that what we're going to discover here tonight is that Rome extends Christianity all through the Mediterranean. By any standard, Jesus is the dominant figure of Western culture. There's no doubt about it. Whether you're thinking in terms of secular or religious, cultural, literary, whatever aspect you approach, Jesus of Nazareth is the dominant figure in Western civilization. What we want to do is connect him and his story to here, to Rome. We talked about the crisis of the first century. We talked about the people who are part of that crisis, these Romans, Julius Caesar, Pompey, Marcus Crassus, Cicero, Brutus, Cato. All of these figures are part of that great first century crisis for Rome. And it's also the moment for the birth of Christianity. Jesus is born in the first century BC, at the time of Herod the Great, most likely 5 or 4 BC. So he's born in that first century. And so therefore, tonight, we're going to connect the world of Italy, the world of Rome, the world of Cicero, to the world of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and, of course, the world that we've already talked about, and that is, of course, the world of Genesis and the ancient Israelites. We talked here a few weeks ago about the creation of the world and God's role in that creation. Here's a painting of Abraham being called out of Ur, being called out of Babylonia. Here is that wonderful mosaic in Ravenna, which tells us the story of Abraham and the covenant and the visitation of the angels and Abraham's decision to follow God's commandments. And so that is part of the story that we've been talking about here for these weeks. This is in Ravenna, in the Church of San Vitale. And then Moses, the great story of Moses and the Exodus and the Ten Commandments. This is a great painting by the Florentine painter Ghirlandaio. This is in the Sistine, in the Vatican. And then, of course, the Jews coming home to Jericho. And this is a modern-day picture of Jericho. Jericho is one of the most heavily studied cities in all of human history. Here's just a sky view of the archaeology that's going on. And Kathleen Kenyon has been one of the great leaders of the study of Jericho. We know probably more about Jericho than any other city ever. And here is Israel at 1000, so ancient Israel at the year 1000. King David, the extent of the kingdom of the Israelites. And then, of course, here's a medieval painting of the destruction of Jerusalem, 587, and the exile of the Jews to Babylonia, the Babylonian captivity, and, of course, Jeremiah. And then we talked here about the creation of the Hebrew Bible. So we should connect that to tonight, composed and edited over about 1,000 years, so from David all the way down to the time of Jesus. No other people created such a literature over such a long period of time. It's the story of the revelation to the Jews in history. Of course, the most important is the Pentateuch, the 5 scrolls, the books of Moses. We talked about how they came to be, how they were brought into a one work, the Hebrew Bible. And then Alexander, 356 to 323, he absorbs Israel and all of the Middle East into his world empire. And then, of course, right after then comes the Roman Empire at its height with Israel absorbed. So that's our survey and our memory of what has happened already. The leader, of course, is Augustus, Gaius Octavius Augustus, 63 BC to 14 AD. Here's a statue of him in Israel, and we can talk a little bit about the dates. As far as we know, birth of Jesus is somewhere 543 BC, but it has to be during the reign of Herod, and so that is most likely 5, 4, or 3 BC, during the period of the kingdom of Herod the Great, who is, of course, ruling in Israel with the permission of Rome. So he is a client state. He is leading the client state with the permission of Rome. He was not great. He was terrible. He killed people, and he was destructive and harmful, but he does, of course, give us clarity about what was happening in Israel under the Romans. Another date that will be helpful to us is 70 AD, because that's the second great destruction of the temple and the destruction of Jerusalem by the Roman Emperor Titus. So our story here tonight, we could think of it from 0 to 70. That is, many of the people that we're talking about here are alive and active in that lifetime of 70 years from 0 to 70. The date of the crucifixion is probably very close to 30. Some astronomers believe that it was 33, but we're fairly clear to the date, something like 31, 2, or 3. Paul, his conversion comes immediately after that. The death of Herod the grandson is 44, and then we have the dates of the missionary journeys of Paul. So here's the chronology for the first 70 years of Christianity.